Hi guys, this is Vishal here from DrapCode. So in this video, we will understand how to implement login and sign up flow using Supabase when you are using Supabase as a backend platform and DrapCode as a front-end builder. So we have created several videos where we have seen how to fetch data from Supabase, how to create new records, how to update, delete data, pagination, sorting, and a lot of things, right? So now we are basically implementing a login and sign up flow. So this will help you to create a full-fledged web application where all the data is getting stored in Supabase and front end is being built on DrapCode, and you're making a real-time calls to fetch data, to create new records, and everything is getting persisted on Supabase. There is nothing which is getting stored at DrapCode, right? So here we have this project which we have created, and all this data is coming from Supabase, and we also have a Supabase project created, and here there is a table called, so let's go to the database, and we have a table called product and review, and we're just fetching the data of the product in the real time and displaying here. So let's go and create a new product. So let's say I created a new product, ID auto generated name, let's say product 777, some description, okay, some price, let's say 120, manufacturing date, and save. So now I have created a record on Supabase, and if I come here and reload the page, then product 777 should come here, right? So this is basically a real-time integration where we are fetching. So this is the product where we are just fetching the data, creating and building everything on top of Supabase. It's a very powerful backend platform which exposes Postgres databases and REST API so that you can build everything on top of it, right? So now let's implement the login and sign up flow. So first we will implement the sign up flow. So to implement a sign up flow, let's take a look at the APIs which are available with Supabase so that we can see what we will be needing. So here, if you go to Supabase and to API documentation, you can see there's an authentication. So this is something which we've already done previously. So basically we need the keys which are associated with our account. So we are using these keys and access token. Now to have a user management, Supabase gives you a pre-built configuration for creating users, verifying the users through OTP, email verification, magic link, login of user, and everything. Like whatever you can think of you need for user management, Supabase may already have it, right? So here there's an API for signing up of new user. There's an API to log in with email and password, magic link. Okay, sign up with phone number and password, login with OTP, SMS verification, third-party login, forward password, update user, log out, and all those things, right? So now we are going to implement a basic sign-up flow so that we can create new users. The user will get created on DrapCode, but ultimately it will be reflected in Supabase. So because we are not storing anything at DrapCode, so user will get eventually created on Supabase, and then we'll use the same user to log in and access the platform. Okay, so for that I'll just use the sign up API. So here it is saying this is the base URL where we will send the data, and it is expecting email and password and API key which is specific to the project. So let's go and do this. So to do this, what we will do, we will just create a page which will have these two fields, email and password. We can add more fields like first name, last name, phone number, and all those things, but just for the simplicity of this video, we will just stick to these two fields and then we'll do it. So what we will do, we will create a form, and then we'll create an external API and push the data from external API to Supabase and see whether the user got created or not. Okay, so I'll go back to my project. So it is here. Let's go and install the login plugin. Why we are installing it? Because this basically creates the user and a role collection. So basically it gives you a schema so that you can directly play on that schema rather than working with JSON. So I'll say just install a user plugin which has password, user role, username. Okay, install plugin. So this basically creates two collections so that you can manage user and role, right? Why roles are there? Because you may want to restrict some roles to some specific pages, so we use it. Okay, so by default there is a role get created which is user. We can change it to whatever you want, or you can create as many new roles as you want, right? So let's say I'll say a role of manager. That's all, and let's say the manager is going to log in on this platform. Okay, so now let's go and create a page. So we will be creating a page, and then we'll create the external API. So I'll say sign up via Supabase. which is fine. So let's copy it from an existing page so that we don't have to redraw that header and footer. So I'll just say a home page. Okay, and I'll create. Okay, so the page got created. I'll just delete this because all these are not needed. And I'll drop a collection form. Why I'm dropping a collection form? Because we just want to create a schema or a form which has the fields which user needs. Okay, which is username and password. We don't need role, so I'll just remove it. Okay, and that's all. So this is the collection form. Let's make it 100%. Okay, that's all. So now what we want to do, whenever user click this form, we want to create a user on Supabase. Okay, now let's see how that can be done. So let's go and create an external API. So I'll go to my settings, I'll go to external APIs. And I'll create an external API which is sign up user via Supabase. Okay, now let's go and see what the configuration is of that API. So sign up API has this post call, and this is the URL. So I'll paste the URL here. Post is already selected, so we don't have to do anything. Headers. So in headers, you need to pass the API key. So this is an API key which is specific to my project. When you will build something, you will have your own API key. So make sure to use that particular key. Okay, I'll say this. And then let's pass this also content type. It is not needed explicitly, but it's completely optional, right? Because behind the scene, we also send it as an application/JSON. Okay, so we have created a basic structure. Now we want to send data. So the data will come from the form which we have created, which is a collection form. So I'll just go and choose this non-persisted collection because data is not coming from database. It is directly coming from the form and the data is not persisted. So we'll choose non-persisted collection. If the data is coming from DrapCode database, then we will choose collection item. But here we're not storing anything in DrapCode end, so it will be non-persisted collection. And I'll just choose user. Okay, now we'll see what all fields we have to send. We want to send email and password. Okay, and these are the two fields which are coming from that form. So I'll say email, which is coming from the form with the name of username. Okay, and other is password. Password is also coming from password. Okay, so we want to send only these two fields. We don't want to process any response as of now. We just want to create a user and sign up. That's all. Okay, I'll say save settings. Now let's go and create an event. So event is basically to bind the form and the external API which we just created, right? So I'll say sign up user via Supabase. You can give whatever name you want to give. Okay, and here I'll just do very simple thing. I'll just say in the external API, send data to external API. Basically, send data to Supabase and sign the user up. Okay, and probably I'll just store it in the browser. Okay, whatever the response which is coming, so that we know that the request got executed successfully. So now I'll go to my page and see. So I'll go to the settings and choose the event which we just created, which is sign up via Supabase. That's all. Okay, and I'll just save it. Let's change this to email. Okay, so that it looks more relevant. In here also, let's change it to email. Don't change this name because this is which is going to the backend. Okay, and just don't change it. So now open this in a preview. As of now, if I go to my Supabase, let's see how many users we have. So I go to my dashboard and I'll go to the auth. And here we have 3 users, someone at the DrapCode, someone at the email, and all these things. Let me just delete these users because these are just dummy users. Okay. Now let's create a new user. Okay, so we are here. Let's say vishal@drapcode.com and password. Okay, so now what I'll do, I'll just sign up and the user should get created. I'll just submit. It has sent the data to Supabase and a success message is written. This is what exactly we configured in the event. Let's go to the Supabase and see whether the user got created or not. So I'll go here and just read those page. So you see the user actually got created and is waiting for confirmation because it sends an email to user to confirm. So I'll just go to my inbox. So this is my email. So I just confirm it. Okay, and that's all. So if I go here and reload the page, the user should have been verified. The user is verified now. So now the user is here. So basically we have completed the sign up flow where the user got created from Supabase and the user is here. Now let's implement the login functionality. Let's say I want to log into the application using this particular user. So how do I do it? So I'll go back to DrapCode and let's go here and let's create things for login. So for login, we'll need two things. First, we will send the username and password. So if I go to the Supabase APIs, so login is implemented using two flows, like not two flows, basically two steps flow. So one is login with email and password. So as soon as you give a username and password, email and password, it will basically give you an access token. Okay. Now we will use that access token to fetch the information of the user, right? So that we know who the user is and we will set that user in the session in DrapCode so that let's say we want to display the email or display the name of the person or maybe use that user ID in further API calls. Although access token itself is sufficient to make further API call, but it makes sense to just fetch the data and store it locally so that when they are doing something, when you want to show their profile photo, their email address or anything, at least you know who the user is, like all those details. So first we'll make a call to login. We'll pass the username, email and password. Okay. And then get the access token. Then probably we'll go and fetch the user detail. So we'll use this API to fetch the detail of the user and we will be passing the user token which we have got in the previous request to fetch the data of the user and just display so that we know that the user is successfully logged in. Okay, let's see how that can be done. So I'll go back and let's create a page. So let's say a page called login via Supabase. Okay, I'll just copy from existing page, which is let's say signed up via Supabase page, and that's all. So the login page got created. It already has two things, so I just change it to login form. Okay, because these are the two fields which are needed for login, so we don't have to redraw this form again. We can just go and change this event to the login event. Okay, this is fine. Now let's do something. So I'll go to my pages and let's say this is a dashboard page. So I'll apply permissions on my dashboard page so that only an authenticated user who is logged in and has a specific role should be able to see this page. So I'll say go to dashboard and let's instead of public, let's say user with manager role. Only the person with manager role should be able to access and update it. Let's display some data from the logged in user so that when we are fetching the data from Supabase for the user, we know that who the person is. Okay, so I'll just remove this and let's drop a couple of things. So I'll say heading, I'll drop, let's say get value from logged in user and display the username. Okay, that's all what we want to display. That is exactly what we are getting from Supabase. I'll just change the background color to something. Okay, and let's just apply some margin on top, 10 pixel. Now let's go and build the external API. So we will be building two APIs, one to authenticate whether the user is valid or not, and second to fetch the data and redirect them to dashboard with their respective email ID and credentials. Okay, so I'll go to external API and let's create an external API to login. So I'll say create external API. Okay, let's say verify username and password for login. Let's go and see the definition of the API. So this is login with email and password. So I'll just copy the URL and it's a post call. So I just copy paste it here. It's a post call, which is fine. In the headers, we need to pass API key, which is API key, and the value is this. So I just copy it. Make sure you copy it correctly. Paste it. One more header, which is content type, and it's application JSON, which is it. That's all. Okay. Now we need to send the data. It is expecting two things, email and password. So I'll say take from non-persisted collection, because it is coming from the collection form and that is not stored somewhere. So I'll say bring it from the in-memory collection with the name, username and the password. So this is coming from the collection form and the password. That's all. So now this is done. We are saying make a call to Supabase, take this username and password and bring the access token. And that's all. Don't do anything. We don't want to process anything, because these things we'll do later in the next API. Okay, so I'll just save it. So the API got created. Now let's go and create an event and bind this API. So I'll go and create an event for the login form. So I'll say login via Supabase. This is here, and let's just make a very simple call that to the external API send the data. Okay, what data? Which is verify username and password. That's all. Probably we'll just save the response in the session so that we know that what is coming, right? Because we will be needing that access token which will come as part of login to call further API. So let's say we are implementing a SaaS or a multi-tenant SaaS platform, or any web application where you want to authenticate the user and see who the user is and maybe show the data on the base of that user. Like a CRM, I want to show something to the user which is relevant for them, right? They should be seeing the data which they should be authorized to see. So we will be needing that access token, and we will read that access token dynamically from the session for all the further subsequent calls. We will be creating videos around building full-fledged end-to-end applications on Supabase. So stay tuned and watch those videos. For now, let's just continue here. I'll just make a call and say bring the access token, store it in the session. So this is the checkbox which we just checked, that whatever the response is coming, just store it in the session so that we can use it further. That's all. Now let's go to the login page and bind this event. Sorry, login via Supabase. Here I'll just choose login via Supabase. That's all. Right. So now let's log in. I'll do something. I'll just open this inspect element and go to the memory so that you can see that there is nothing in the session. Okay. And when the user gets logged in, some value will come. So now let's try to log in with some random user. Okay. I'll just submit. This should send the data to Supabase, and if the user is valid, it will bring the access token and show us that it. Okay. So I made a call. Some error. Maybe the user is not valid. Okay. And okay. Now let's log in with the actual user which we just created. Vishal@drapcode.com and password it. Okay. I'll just submit. Now you see in the browser session, we have this field, which is the access token with an expiry. So if you zoom in, you will be able to see. So this is the access token with some expiry. Okay, and it's a bearer type token. Now we will be using this token to fetch further details of the user. Okay, so basically this completes the login flow. So if you want to have this token and you want to make further API calls, you want to redirect the user to their dashboard and show something, I think this is complete. But if you want to go one step further, and you want to fetch the data of that user and display on dashboard that, okay, this is the user who is logged in. So let's see how that can be done. Now we will be basically fetching one more API which I showed you. Like this, user, get the data of that particular user. So I'll just make one more external API and try to fetch all this information. Here we will be needing the API key which we already have, plus we will be needing the dynamic access token of the user who is logged in. As of now, I'm logged in as Vishal@DrapCode, but this could be anyone, right? This could be your actual users, your role, your company, your like team members, whoever is the user of the application. So the access token will be dynamic on the basis of who that user is. So let's go and create one more external API. So I'll go to external API and let's create one more API. So I'll say fetch the data of logged in user and redirect them to dashboard. So now this is a get call with this URL. So let's copy the URL. In the header, they are expecting two things. One is API key, which is fine. We'll give API key and the value is this. And the other is authorization and bearer token. Okay, now there is a catch. We don't know what this token is, right? It will be specific to each user. So how to pick this? So to get this token, we will be fetching it from session. So this is how you fetch data which is stored in session and pass it to any REST API or an external API. So I'll just copy it, key. So this is the key which is different for different use cases, different APIs. So I don't know what that key is. So let's go and see where the data is stored. It could be a single key or it could be a complete JSON path for that particular access token which we are accessing. So let's go and see. In case of Supabase, this is the access token which is on the root. So there is no hierarchy. So here if you see, the user is authenticated. Okay, so all these things are here, but this is an access token, right? So what we do, we'll just take it and we'll paste it here. So this is the token. Now what we'll do, we'll just process the response. We are saying that whatever the data is coming as part of response, just store it in the session so that we can use or display that information for subsequent calls. So I'll say enable login and sign up response. Okay, so this basically try to fetch the information of the user and store it in the user collection. Okay, so that it can be accessed further. So I'll say field for uniquely identifying the user. Okay, so I have made a dummy call to this API just to see that how the response looks like. So this is when you make a call to user with access token and send it so that we know what type of response it is. And ID is a unique identifier, then email. So let's say we use this email field as a unique, because I know that this is the field which is the user and there won't be two users with the same email address. So username is again email. Password, we can put some random password or maybe give something, let's say ID. Okay. In the role, we don't have to give it. So I'll just save it. So here what we are saying, whatever the data is coming from that fetch call, just create a dummy user for DrapCode so that we can see that, okay, what role they have and how they can access different things. So I'll just save it. So the login API is done. Now let's go and bind this to the event which we have created. So I'll go to the event, login with Supabase and say one more API. Okay, external API. Now this time I'll say authorize using external API, because what we are saying, send the data to the third party API. Whatever is coming, you need to authorize it so that the user is logged in on DrapCode also, because DrapCode also has its session, right? So how do we know which user to log in and which user not to log in? So on the basis of what the data is coming, we'll identify the user, and if they are already there on DrapCode, we just log in them. If not there, they will create a user and log in them, so that for further subsequent calls to Supabase, we know that who the user is. So I'll say external API, fetch data and login user. Okay, role. So it is saying that whatever this data is coming, what role you want to give to them. So as of now, we have configured role on DrapCode, but we are working on a way where the role can come from Supabase also. So we'll first check whether the role is coming or not. On the basis of that role, we redirect them to their respective dashboard. If not, then we will give them a default role. So for now, I'll just say manager role. So this is important. Here we want to send something from browser session to the Supabase API, right? And like the system does not know what it is, right? So we need to pass it from the browser session and pass it to the external API. So let's go and see. We want to send this access token. So I'll just copy the key and paste it here. If you want to send multiple, then you can just copy and then send multiple values. So we want to pass this key from the browser to the external API. Select page. So where we want to redirect the person once they log in. So I'll say take them to dashboard. Okay, and maybe a success message. Success. Okay, and probably save the response in session, submit data in session, optional, so I'll just leave it. Okay, that's all. So now what we have done, we have made a call in the first step to fetch the access token. In the second call, we are sending that access token to fetch more information about the user. And once we have that information, we are logging in DrapCode with that user, so that for further subsequent API calls, we will know who the user is. Now let's try the login flow again. So I'll just erase all this. Okay. And let's log in again. I'll just submit. So it has sent the data to Supabase, verified it, and redirected us to the dashboard. And here now I am seeing the person, that Vishal at the DrapCode. So this is exactly the same user from which we logged in. And if you go and see in the session, the value of all those things are here. So Vishal is here, login ID, login via Supabase, password. Okay, I don't know why it is exposing password. Okay, because we have stored the data of the form. So this password is not coming from Supabase. This is something what we submitted. You can just ignore it. Don't show the password. Okay, and this is the access token which we are getting. Okay, and basically all the details of the user is coming. So now this is the user and it has all the fields. So the authenticated, confirmation email sent, email ID, and all those things. So don't worry about it. This is stored in the browser, and as soon as someone log out or closes the browser, it will be erased. Okay. So here now the user is logged in as Vishal at the DrapCode. If you create new user, you can also log in from that user. If the users are creating on Supabase from some other application, some other account, and if they exist and we are able to authenticate them, then they will also be logged in. So it doesn't matter whether you build application or whether the user are signing up from DrapCode application or they are coming from anywhere else. As long as the data is there in the user table, they will be able to log in on the platform. So let's say you have a company, you have thousands of users who are already there on Supabase. You build a full-fledged application or web application for them on DrapCode, and they will be able to log in using their magic link or their username, password, OTP, whatever, and it works perfectly fine on DrapCode. Hope you enjoyed the video. See you again in the next video. Bye bye.